Godzilla, King of the Monsters is the long-awaited sequel to the 2014 Godzilla movie. It took them 5 years to make this, and in the movie's timeline, it has been 5 years since the events of the first Godzilla. And over those 5 years, Monarch, the agency investigating Godzilla and tracking him, has also located other places where these creatures called the Titans exist. And when one creature named Ghidorah breaks out of his hibernation place, this three-headed dragon, Godzilla and him are going to have a fight between who is going to be the king of all these monsters. Who's going to control them? Are they going to bring destruction on us, or are going to bring us peace? I was really excited for this movie. After seeing the first Comic-Con trailer, I was completely blown away. It was one of the best trailers I've ever seen. I'm not kidding with that. The trailers for this movie specifically are honestly some of the best edited trailers I've ever seen, honestly. They're so well done. And also, I really like the 2014 Godzilla movie. I know some people aren't as big on it as I am. I used to love it. That was when I was like 14. Now my grade has kind of changed from an A+ that I gave it in that original cringy review to now kind of like a solid B. But I still do enjoy watching that movie. Kong Skull Island, which came out 3 years after the first Godzilla movie, also in this MonsterVerse series that Legendary and Warner Brothers are making. Not a big fan of that one. I think there are times where it's really fun, but other times where it's just not so, and it's not really just a well put together movie in all honesty, and the characters are kind of weak. But this movie I was super hyped for because the director is honestly one of my new favorite directors as far as horror movies go, and that's Michael Dougherty. He directed Trick or Treat, which is a really fun Halloween movie, and Krampus, which is a really fun Christmas-themed horror film, which I really enjoyed. And you can still watch my review on this channel, and you can hear me talk about how much I enjoyed it there. In fact, as time has gone on, I've enjoyed it a lot more. So I was really hyped to see what this director could do, especially since the trailers look so good, and I was just really excited to see another Godzilla movie, because I'm also a big fan of the original Japanese film where all four of the main monsters show up: Godzilla, Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan. And I got a huge kick out of this movie. In fact, I would definitely call it my favorite out of this MonsterVerse that Legendary and Warner Brothers have made. This movie was a ton of fun from start to finish, basically. One thing I want to get out of the way really quickly, because I know a lot of people's main target as far as the reviews go is just talking about how cool the monster fights are. We'll get to that later, but one thing I was really impressed by, because I was worried, because the first Godzilla movie, it has a little bit of a character problem. I'm not a big hater on Aaron Taylor Johnson as the main character. In fact, I think killing off Bryan Cranston is actually kind of a ballsy idea, and it's an interesting idea to increase drama with the characters. I just don't think it was handled that well in the script overall. And Kong Skull Island, the characters all kind of suck pretty much, except for like two. And those characters in Kong Skull Island are all big name actors, and Godzilla King of the Monsters had a big name cast here. So I was worried a little bit going in, like maybe they're gonna repeat some of the same issues that I had with Kong Skull Island. But as soon as the movie opened up, I was really happy to see that they were introducing these characters and actually beginning their arcs, which went in really interesting directions, I thought. I actually really enjoyed the fact that they actually spent some time to at least make some of the characters work really well. Millie Bobby Brown, coming off of Stranger Things, she does a really great job here, of course. I know I haven't reviewed Stranger Things, but she's awesome in that show. She's a really great young actress, and she's continuing that here, even though it's not Stranger Things anymore, it's a movie and not a show. She's still really great, and I think she really does have a great future. And I just really like some of her conflicting issues in this movie, because you have Kyle Chandler and Vera Farmiga who aren't entirely on the same page, and she's kind of caught in the middle, and I really like that aspect of it. I don't want to give away why they're so drifted apart, but I thought it was a really interesting idea to kind of show off how this world has been affected now because of these titans. Vera Farmiga was also really good here. There are certain times where her character has to deliver certain exposition that might seem crazy to another actor. Like if another actor did it, it might have come off really cheesy, maybe a little hokey, a little strange, but the way she kind of delivered everything, it kind of all made sense. And in terms of the movie, with the world that we are in, it all kind of made sense for me too. It all kind of clicked. So I was able to really get behind that and get behind her big struggle in this film. Also, Kyle Chandler, when they introduced him, I was a little worried that it was going to be Chris Pratt Jurassic World syndrome. And not that I hate Chris Pratt in the Jurassic World movies, because I don't. He's one of the best parts of them, obviously. But I was just worried that it was just going to be another one of those characters. And in this movie, yeah, he plays the guy who knows a lot about everything, and if he hasn't figured it out yet, he will definitely figure it out before everyone else in the room has, pretty much. But once again, I think they did a really good job with his character as far as keeping him grounded with this family drama. charisma that they have already established beforehand. And when you see him progress throughout the rest of the movie, there are definitely times where I actually did kind of feel for him. And Kyle Chandler, I thought, did a really good job here. Ken Watanabe is back. I was honestly kind of surprised at how much they gave him, because in the trailers they kind of kept him away from it as much as possible. But he actually has a pretty good role here, very similar to his role in 2014. In fact, I'd say his role is probably better here, and actually kind of touched me a little bit in my heart area compared to his role in the 2014 film. So that was really good to see him take this character that I already liked from the 2014 one and actually kind of make him better too. As mentioned before, there are a ton of big name actors here, but I think what some people are kind of confused by is that they are all kind of cast in like more minor roles. Like you have Bradley Whitford showing up as just basically a computer guy, and he's not really a big major character. He's more like kind of comedic relief. And O'Shea Jackson Jr., the son of Ice Cube, he's been a big rising star ever since Straight Outta Compton, and then Ingrid Goes West after that. So I think some people might be surprised that he is basically just playing a soldier who's got some comedic lines, and everyone else in the supporting cast, like Thomas Middleditch, also just kind of has some more supporting comedic relief stuff. But honestly, I think with the writing, as far as like their jokes, I think they all managed to pull them off, and I wasn't annoyed at their characters either, and I didn't think their characters were entirely flat. They just served the purpose that they were supposed to be, and because of the actors playing them, they actually kind of elevated it and made me remember them more than anyone in Kong Skull Island, basically. So I know that there are some complaints about the human characters, and there's definitely some things that I will get into later as far as my negatives, where certain human characters don't really work for me. But overall, I'd say they actually did a really good job this time around of balancing everything, setting up the human character drama a little bit more with the three main characters, and also having the supporting characters not be annoying or not be forgettable either. But now let's get to the part everyone wants me to talk about, the fight sequences between these frickin' titans. Oh my god. I was a little curious to see how Michael Dougherty was going to transfer from just a low-budget kind of horror filmmaking to big-budget CGI action sequences, and I think he made the transition fairly well. Every single action scene in this movie is just mesmerizing to the eye. The visual effects look outstanding. I looked at these creatures and I saw things that were actually real. Like I could probably reach out and touch them if I wanted to, and I'd actually feel something. It was so beautiful. Honestly, not only does this have like the best visual effects in the entire MonsterVerse series, but I'd honestly say this movie is kind of currently rivaling Endgame right now as far as some of the best visual effects of the entire year. They did that good of a job with this thing, with making everyone look so good. Mothra looks beautiful. They did a really great job designing Mothra and giving her this elegance too whenever she's flying around. That's another thing they do really well with the creatures, is that they give them their own distinct personalities as far as how they move or how they act. Mothra is a little bit more elegant. Butterfly, Rodan is a sniveling kind of jackass in this movie, but I loved him. There's one part where there's a jet flying next to him trying to get away, and you see Rodan just smirk at him, and I loved it. I was like, oh my god, that's so perfect. I really did like the way they treated Rodan in this one, because it was a little bit different than the Godzilla-Rodan rivalry at first, then team up later. They did change that up a little bit, but I really did like what they did with them. King Ghidorah is a beast in this movie. As soon as they revealed him, it was just glorious. I love the fact that they give him nothing but thunderclouds to surround him, because he like brings this electric storm pretty much everywhere he goes, but you can still make out what he looks like. You can still see the great design they have for him, and that's another thing, is that there are a few times where the camera work, I guess, could have been a little bit better. There's definitely one part early on in the movie where it might have been a little too shaky, and I couldn't really tell if a certain person had been eaten or not, pretty much. But other than that one scene right there that could have been fixed up a bit, every single moment with the camera work is excellent, and they do a really good job capturing everything and capturing all of the fight sequences so well. And Godzilla the King is back, and he looks better than ever. He is so good here. I really love what they did with Godzilla in this movie. That if you were disappointed at the lack of him in the 2014 one, which I'm not as disappointed in, you're really gonna like this movie, because not only do they give you a bunch of other monster stuff, but they give Godzilla some time to shine here. Really, really well done stuff on Michael Dougherty's part. You can tell, I think, that Michael Dougherty is a huge fan of this. I think he's talked about this before, that he's a big fan of these monster movies. He's a big fan of the Godzilla movie, so you can definitely feel that fandom when it comes to the action sequences, that they paid so much attention to detail as far as how they fought and how they acted. All of this is accompanied by a fantastic musical score score by Bear McCreary, who I was not expecting this. When they announced his name as the composer, I was like, that's an interesting choice, because I really only knew him from 10 Cloverfield Lane, pretty much. I might be forgetting something else, but that's pretty much all I knew him from. But then he transfers over to this big movie, and this just great sound, great orchestral sound, and it was so great. Every single song from the score they had in this movie, every single theme, I thought Bear McCreary did a wonderful job at the composing of this, and I think he can really go places as a composer, because he came up with some really beautiful music for this film, and also suspenseful music as well. To wrap up my review with some of the cons of this movie, I did mention that some of the camera work could have been improved a little earlier on in the movie at one specific scene. Also, Charles Dance's in the movie. They don't really give him much of a rhyme or reason or motivation to be doing the things that he does, so I just kind of left unimpressed by him. Maybe there's more to this guy to be uncovered, but overall I just didn't really get a sense that he was more than what you already saw, which was just Guy running this secret group, pretty much. Also, there's one moment where the military brings this weapon out of nowhere with no real build-up beforehand. They just are like, hey, we got this new weapon now, like all of a sudden, that's like super dangerous. And when they mentioned that in the movie, I was like, wait, right now? Because it was in the middle of a scene that already had a lot of tension going on, and this just kind of felt like, not only do we need to progress the plot forward, but we also need to add some more tension as well, and I just didn't think that really worked. I think maybe if they built up to that more, maybe it would work better. But overall, it just felt like an unnecessary add to tension, kind of last minute kind of thing. But overall, guys, I really did enjoy this movie a lot. I know some people aren't really enjoying this as much as me, obviously, and that's totally fine. If this isn't your thing, that's totally cool. But if you are like me and you're wanting to see them do Godzilla and these monsters right, if you want to see them kick ass and beat each other up, but if you also want to be surprised at how much attention they actually give to some of the human characters, then I'd say definitely go for it, because this movie definitely did surprise me. It could have just been 4 monsters beat the crap out of each other in a city the entire movie. But instead, they actually did want to focus a little bit more on this family dynamic that I actually was kind of surprised by, and I don't think a lot of people are mentioning it as much. I feel like some people are kind of glossing over it, or maybe just matching them up with this ideal that all these human characters are really bad, when in actuality, I thought they actually did a pretty solid job with them. There's only a few human characters, like the military admiral from the last movie, and Charles Dance, who I thought didn't really work. I'm gonna give Godzilla King of the Monsters a B+. This was a ton of fun for me. Does it have a few issues here and there? Yes, of course, but this is still a ton of fun. When it comes to monster fights, I got pretty much everything I wanted out of this movie. I walked out of the theater kind of exhausted. I saw it in IMAX, the glorious IMAX screen, and you could take in every single visual so well. It's so beautifully shot too. It's just a really fun movie with some great filmmaking on display from Michael Dougherty, and some great acting from the minor comedic relief characters, and also the main cast. But if you've seen Godzilla King of the Monsters, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.